This question then of women in the workplace, because one of the really big changes of the last 50 years that in order to maintain the standard of living they feel they need, it's now the norm very often for both parents to work. That in turn creates a need for some way of caring for children. Again, here are some facts and figures.
So what the question Research is trying to answer is trying to ask what happens when you increase the hours worked in the labour market by the second earner in a household, and what happens to the share of childcare costs in net income. That's income after taxes. So what happens, as you can see by the line towards the bottom end of the chart, the share of childcare costs increases as you move towards longer hours in the labour market. So by the time you get to full-time work, the childcare costs take out a substantial chunk of net income. So there's a big gap between the net income line and the actual income line on the right-hand side of the chart.
OK, now David Willetts, why is childcare so expensive here?
Well, that is a very good question. Childcare in this country...
Answer it.
Yeah, I'll have a try. Because certainly childcare in this country is unusually expensive.
Yeah.
I think it is over-regulated and over-complicated. We ended up, over the past decade, we had a big attack on childminders, a big fall in the number of childminders, which is a very cost-effective way of delivering childcare. The funding has gone in complicated different funding streams. So there's lots of management time collecting the funding. So there is a series of problems which we are trying to tackle, even in tough times, to help women with the cost of childcare.
Be clear about this. This is, you were just getting onto it a second ago, or a few minutes ago. Is this a growing problem? Do you hear more and more people worrying about it?
Absolutely. We've seen quite a change in the last 10 years. It's quite interesting, actually, when you look at the longer picture, actually, to see that women were working, increasing to work from about 55 up to 70% over around 30 years. But in the last 10 years, it's really trailed off, and we're not seeing the growth in female employment. And one of the key reasons for that is the cost of childcare has gone up so much, and is just making it unaffordable. It's just not worth working if you have to pay out that much in childcare.
What do you think, Phil Bentley, could be done then to get round this problem?
Well, we certainly think there should be more free childcare available and add more hours.
Paid for by?
Well, I think one of the suggestions we have is how we fund our recommendations. One area might be means testing winter fuel payments, for example. One might be. I mean, Clive, you've probably got some.
So
comments
what we've
there.
called for in the report is that the current 15 hours of free childcare a week should be extended in two ways. First, that an additional 10 hours a week should be available at £1 an hour. So people are paying some nominal charge for that. That allows somebody, added together, 25 hours or 3 days work a week. And secondly, that should be extended into the school holidays, because those are the issues that prevent somebody making the decision to go to work. The second thing we've asked for in that second earner situation is that when that second earner, which are typically again the woman, begins to work, she's able to earn the first £2,000 of that before it begins to eat into what the household might be receiving.
Why is this any business of the state?
Well, I think the state wants to see a very strong, viable middle class. It wants to see a group of people that are able to afford to hold their head above water without falling back onto welfare benefits. That's been a central social goal for administrations right across the political spectrum for a very long time.
Do you think it's the state's job?
I think there are certainly things governments can do, and indeed we've tried. I mean, as a part of Ian Duncan Smith's reforms, in the old days, under the previous government, you couldn't get help with your childcare costs and tax credits if you were earning less than 16 hours a week. We've got rid of that, so if you're working less than 16 hours a week, you can now get help. We've also extended help to parents with children aged 2, so they get free assistance if they're on low incomes. So again, even in tough times, we are still trying to tackle these fundamental challenges to help struggling families who are trying to do the right thing with their costs. So there are things we can do.
But philosophically, why does the state have to do it?
Well, here am I. I would believe that governments have a responsibility to be alongside people trying to do the right thing. If you are trying to raise kids and you both want to go out to work and it's over-regulated so the costs are too high, we should tackle the red tape. If you're finding that the tax credit system is penalising you because you're working less than 16 hours a week, we should get rid of the penalty. And we're working through it to try to help families that are doing the right thing.
There might be a more practical way of seeing why governments would want to focus on this as well. The bottom half of workers receive today 12p in the pound for every pound the country earns of GDP. but they've got 50% of the votes. And this is a group, this is 10 million working people, one third of the working population, who live in 6 million homes and have got 5 million children living in those homes. And this is a group that is becoming increasingly aware that they've been left behind by that decoupling that Sally mentioned earlier.
And their votes can be bought.
I think their votes can be addressed, their issues can be addressed, and I think that as we go into 2015, and certainly by the time we get to 2020, this is a segment of the population that right across the political spectrum, people will be seeking to show they've made proportionate responses.
These
to
are the
needs.
strivers that David Cameron was talking about the other week. He's absolutely, and the point is, these are people who absolutely have mainstream values. They're trying to do the right thing. They're entitled to feel in return that politicians of whichever party are on their side and trying to help tackle their problems.
Okay, let's move on to another element of this now, because the new society, which seems to be emerging from the changed economy of this country, looks to be very different from what went before. That group, the squeezed middle between the richest and the poorest, looks to be growing and growing. The question that arises is fairness, not just what's fair between rich and poor, but between young and old. For the third time, a few figures.
So this chart shows male employment rates in the UK relative to the OECD for different ages of men. I think the striking feature of the chart is it shows how poorly we do in terms of men aged 55 and over, where the male employment rate is much lower in the UK than it is in other OECD countries. I think this is in part because of the relatively poor employment performance of less skilled men who worked in the more traditional kinds of jobs that have collapsed in terms of the labour market over the last 30 or 40 years.
Okay, looking at this question of old people, what did you discover about why there were fewer old people working?
What we discovered, and indeed Allegra referred to it, is that it's quite a complicated decision to work as you get older. In your late 50s, you're quite likely, given longevity, to have somebody who you're looking after who's in their late 70s or into their early 80s. And so it's not always an easy decision to be able to work. But for those who want to, the difficulty is that the jobs available might be, given comparison with your benefits, only a marginal improvement in your household income. And so again, one of the recommendations in the report is that you'd raise the level at which national insurance contributions is charged from £7,500 to £10,000 once you reach the age of 55. And that £2,000 can make the difference for people.
Right. Why don't you do that?
Well, we've tried to tackle the problem in a different way. Of course, we've got rid of the compulsory retirement age. I'm a bit wary of special age-related rules on national insurance. We'll look at all these proposals, but we have...
Old people don't pay national insurance, do they?
Well, and that's why it would be a rather odd structure that's being proposed.
Well, you could just tax them back into work, couldn't you?
Well, we have, of course, in the budget. You might remember the controversy about it, Jeremy.
Yeah,
we
I
have got
exactly
rid.
how you danced around on that.
No, we have quite rightly said you should pay the same rate of income tax on the same allowance, whether you're age 45, 55, 65. And that was controversial at the time, but it was the right decision because it was fair between people of different ages. And we've also got rid of the compulsory
You know
retirement
there's an
age.
unfairness here between young and old, don't you?
I think that our society, is not offering a fair enough deal to the younger generation. Yeah, I accept that. And it was one of the things that the
Why do you
government...
want to do something about it?
Well, I'm describing some of the things we have done. We have got rid of the compulsory retirement age. We have got a fair income tax allowance that applies to people of whatever their age. The apprenticeship investment is to provide better opportunities for young people. And all these are done even when we're facing this tough, competitive environment.
I think that's the key point. We have 50 applicants for every one apprentice. So there are great people out there who really want to work, and if we can give them the skills, they'll get the job done. We just need more jobs, more companies, dare I say it, like British Gas, who are investing in the future generation. There's some great people out there. We've got to get work.
Do you ever get any old people coming on an apprenticeship?
We do. We had a father and son apply. We had an ex-footballer. We've got a marine biologist. We've had a number. And we also had...
What's your cut-off limit?
There isn't one. There isn't one. People
So
want to
someone
work.
65 could come and apply to be an apprentice.
I met one of our engineers who worked in Doncaster, started in 1961. He'd done 50 years service. So there are some great people in this
I bet you
company.
wouldn't take him on now, though, would you?
He only retired last year, so he was...
Yeah, we've got rid of the compulsory retirement age.
Yeah. But so you would take on someone that old, would you?
We would if they want to
train
work.
as an apprentice?
Yeah, no, we would do. I mean, frankly, we'd like to see more opportunities for young people, and that's certainly what we're investing in.
Equally, didn't you think when you were writing this report that some old codgers, some old people might well feel, I've worked a long time, I'm entitled to put my feet up.
Yeah, and that's absolutely a personal choice. But for many people, the household budget's so tight, that doesn't feel like a very real choice, Jeremy.
But you're saying we can't pay for it anymore.
I'm saying that the tax credit system has probably reached the limit of its capability to make meaningful improvements in household income. What we've got to do is make work pay, so if people want to work, they can. And that means removing barriers. One of those barriers, if you're 55, is the thought you go to work, the job available to you might be paying £10,000 or £12,000, and you are in a position where a large proportion of that is going, or not a large proportion, but a meaningful proportion of what you then want to take back into the household is going in national insurance contributions.
As opposed to staying at home and getting all these benefits old people can get. I mean, you must be in favour of means testing them, aren't you?
Well, we made some very specific pledges, and we're going to break pledges that we made in the last election.
Well, perhaps they were silly pledges.
We're going to honour those pledges, and meanwhile, we are, because of the changes in the income tax rules, because of getting rid of the compulsory retirement age, we're absolutely encouraging and expecting more people as they get older to carry on working. That's their contribution, and more of them are doing so.
You want more people to carry on working past what used to be retirement age.
We have got rid of the compulsory retirement age, and it was part of a new contract. We've got rid of the compulsory retirement age. At the same time, we've got rid of the special tax allowance if you are older by raising everyone else's tax allowance. That is a new expectation that people will have to carry on working, and it's a tough decision, but we've made it.
Have you tried this out on any old people who are fed up with working?
No, I personally haven't, and I think that we need to be, and my particular audience is obviously the mums bit, and we have talked to them about all sorts of issues, but I do think that the government has done a lot, but they really need to look holistically at this as an issue and really try to sort of join things up a bit better. So at the moment there's a childcare review that's going on, a commission on childcare, but it's looking at markets and regulation, but it's not actually looking at the possibility of investment in this field, which would do so much more. So there are all sorts of things that, again, with the universal credit that's coming along, there's great work to try to make work pay, but actually the second earner bit is actually going to have a huge impact, a very negative impact on, again, women in work. And so again, it's just a matter of, I think, joining the dots up and make sure that it all pulls together.
What do you make of that?
Well, one of the reasons why we've tried to improve the rules on childcare for parents with young children is absolutely to encourage the second earner to work, but I'm sure there's more things that we need to do. And the one thing we have missed so far in this is the international framework. The fact is, all around the world, there are other countries that are rising to this type of challenge. We face competitive challenges from elsewhere. And one of the other reasons we've got to get this right is the rest of the world is not standing still. And I think getting more people into work, parents with young children into work, older people staying on in work, those are all the type of things we need to do to make our country more prosperous.
Okay, thank you all very much indeed. Thanks. Tomorrow morning's